Alrighty, guys, so I'm going to try to keep this quick. So I got in a session of a one-shot that I just ran for a few people. Overall, the session was pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how things worked out. Theme of the game was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. It was all the people and the players in their real life, those people turned into Pokemon and going off on an adventure in Pokemon World, and we were using Fate as the system. Originally, I wanted to use Roll. I tried figuring it out, and there was something with the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon module, and I think it was a earlier edition or something. But I decided to give up on that and just use a generic universal system. And I landed on Fate because it was pretty simple in the grand scheme of systems. So player wise, we had Luke, Vince, Joey, all of which were in my real campaign and I've played with quite a few times. We had Charles, who has played D&D, but not in one of my games. And we had Chef, who was a totally new player, or maybe technically played D&D once for 15 minutes before, but this was his first real proper experience with playing an RPG. And I know when I'm playing with newer people or even people who aren't new, but I don't have an established chemistry or dynamic with at the table yet, I know we're going to lean goofy. So we were playing in Pokemon World, which is not a world that I have any veneration for or anything, because when it comes to my D&D world, I can be a little protective with it. I don't want people. I have to be a little careful with what details I let people make up with it. But when it comes to Pokemon World, you can blow up continents or whatever, and it makes no difference to me. Like, in the grand spectrum as to where I would put games, though, like role-playing games, right? If D&D 3.5 is on the very role play heavy aspect and that you assume a role of a real character who is very directly limited to whatever resources and means that actual person has, and then Fate is like towards the other end of the spectrum of RPGs where it's almost just a story around the circle game and we're all just gonna add sentences to a story and make stuff up until we make something cool and fun and interesting. Which again, I like both of those types of games. There's value in both of them. I'm just saying that that's the kind of game that Fate leans towards. And also, when it comes to Fate, I didn't play it 100%. As the book is written, I made up a bit of my own rules and kind of made this stuff work for both my playstyle and this Pokemon world. And I could definitely pick up on the fact that maybe like halfway or maybe towards the end of this session, the verisimilitudinous was kind of breaking and cracking for Shaft. Like I could right when he proposes, like, well, can I use my fate point to add a detail to the scene, which is something you can do, and then to propose, oh, can I find a Giratina tracker, which the goal of this session, the objective was to find and capture or kill Giratina. And so, I could get that he was kind of poking fun at the fact that he's realized that all of this is make-believe and all of it is just complete nonsense and none of it matters at all, which is objectively true. But as a person who's been playing these games for a while, I have definitely figured out that it's just the game is the most fun when everyone pretends that it matters a lot, right? But obviously, you can't stop in the middle of a session and have a 15-minute diatribe about how make believe can be fun and like. But again, like this was very in jest. He was not like entirely checked out and is like given up on the game. But I could definitely pick up on the fact that he stopped caring about what specifically happened in the story or what happened to his character, which I do get is in part on me because as the DM, it's my job to convince everyone that all of this matters and to get them to care. And there were probably like scenes and characters that I maybe lent a little too into the goofy side with, and maybe I could have went a little more into the taking it slightly more seriously with some of the characters, because it definitely can become a feedback loop effect where if I'm goofy and I'm telling everyone else like, hey, you can be goofy, and then it'll just snowball into a just an imploded session. Fortunately, we actually got to the end of this session, which I am pretty happy with, because I've definitely struggled with pacing before, but the fact that I was able to, I think, in good time, figure out when the wheels were spinning and just add something to the session to keep the game moving. But I don't think I went too far with the like just forcing stuff to happen. I feel like I gave an appropriate amount of time for everyone to actually decide how they want to move forward before I had to interject. But yeah, actually getting to the end of the session within the allotted amount of time, I'm very happy with. Which again, definitely a lot of the combat suffered, because there were a lot of moments where I just sort of had to decide that the combat was over and to move forward with things, rather than have everyone roll 100 times for every single fight everyone got in. But yeah, no, that this has definitely greatly increased my confidence when it comes to will I be able to time and pace the session properly. That was great. Now, so we'll go on with my actual notes here, which generally I do want to keep that magician's secret alive and to not reveal what I had prepared. But in this case, it was a one shot, so whatever. Maybe in this instance, giving players a little bit of insight into what I'm looking at and working with. Maybe this will give them the confidence to give DMing a shot. Because to be honest, there's not a whole lot to it. Now, in all the sessions that I've run, like the amount of prep I've done for this, I wrote like about 4 pages, which is definitely on the very far high end of amount of effort that I will put into a session. Like on the lowest amount, I might write like 6 sentences for the entire session and then just run off of that. But since this was a one shot, I absolutely wanted to make sure that I had a beginning and an ending and stuff that could conceivably happen in the middle. And I think overall, in the grand scheme of sessions that I've had on an engagement level, like how often was everyone engaging and actively adding to the game and not like just sitting back and being on their phones, this ranked pretty high on the engagement level over the course of the session. I feel like the way which just if you ever get to the end of a session and no one has entirely checked out yet, then that just that feels pretty good when everyone at least cares what's happening at the very end. Okay, so let's just go on with what notes I've written and then what ended up happening. So preface, I explained the game, the very basics of the mechanics of Fate, and I really like this piece of advice that I heard in a YouTube video of someone playing Fate, that they recommended that the players drive their characters like stolen cars and to not care what happens to them and let them suffer any damage, or not, just be extremely reckless with them and have interesting things happen. I think people took that to heart. I think it worked pretty well. Then Pokemon lore, I just made sure everyone knew that this is gonna be fake Pokemon world, and that I guess I should also set a little bit of context that I have played a handful of Pokemon games. I might have beaten a single Pokemon game in my life. I am very much so not a deep into the Pokemon world or lore or anything like that, but the first person to reach out to me to actually say that they wanted to do this, they suggested Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. No one said no, so we said, all right, let's do it. Let's go with it. So at the very beginning, I had everyone roll dice just to kind of get a little bit of a sense as to how the whole adding up and subtracting thing worked. And we picked up with everyone as their real individual people, like they're themselves as the player, not the character, and what they were doing last night, and the lead up to them going to sleep, which I don't know if this I think it worked. It set the tone, I think, of things being normal up until then, or at least to convey the point that you guys are all in not Pokemon world and you guys are humans. I didn't really, there wasn't really any dialogue or scenes, which I think in my mind's eye, when I envisioned this happening, I envisioned stuff like that occurring, but I could not figure out a natural, seamless way to have it happen. But it wasn't too painful. Everyone gave like a quick 10-15 second description of their last night, and we moved on. And then everyone went to sleep and they woke up in dreamland. There was almost a kissing incident that occurred when everyone woke up here, so we almost fell into the troll territory of the last campaign, but fortunately it didn't go down that angle. But then they're all told like, "Hey, I'm Zatu, and I'm the super spirit guide Pokemon, and I'm telling you guys that there's this prophecy, and you guys need to save the world, basically." And again, this is all uh, when it comes to the intro of the one shot, I just try to make it as like I know that it's gonna come across as clunky, and I know it's gonna seem unnatural, but I've just figured, look, everyone's still got the excitement of just being here and playing this game. You can kind of ride off of that and have it be quite a bit bumpy at the beginning here, and they'll generally their suspension of disbelief, or maybe even beyond that, their willingness to play like this game and just go along with whatever is happening, uh, beyond just the narrative, but just the entire game experience itself. People were willing to sit through like, hey, you guys are the chosen ones and you guys need to go save the world. Which again, not great. I did not have a lot of time to write this. This was a very quick hack job, I should say. So yeah, this scene went down pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how I handled this. It was I made some jokes and they generally seemed to land. Everyone woke up and they were Pokemon. So we handed out the sheets again. Everyone's in pretty good spirits at this point. I think it's going pretty well. We have the Bidoof come out and he's telling everyone, hey, join my team. Obviously, they get into a confrontation and some kind of conflict with this guy, burn him, nearly kill him to death, because what else would you do if you're a Pokemon if not instantly try to kill the first Pokemon that you saw and get that sweet, sweet XP? Then a kid jumps out from behind some bushes, tries to Magmar flamethrower them. They pick up the Bidoof and just run away with him. On the way there, Bidoof succumbs to his injuries and dies and tells them that he was sent by Zatu and that they need to kill Giratina and save the world. Okay, so that's what happened. And then they come across the city. So with the city, they saw a Poke Center. They didn't do anything with that. Poke Mart, they bought, well, eventually they came across some money and bought some potions and Pokeballs. There was the gym. They didn't do anything with that. There was the power plant and the mansion. So when they came to the city, so the first thing they wanted to do, they were going to go to the Pokemart to try to rob it, is what happened. But on the way to the Pokemart, they got jumped by a Mr. Mime and a Grand Bull that tried to rob them at knife point. And they fought them and pretty handily took care of them. They came across, well, at this point, I was going to have Old Man Jim come up and save them, and then get that to be the point where they meet with him, but they didn't really need saving. They just smoked these fools. So they pocketed. Well, first of all, I should say this very quickly devolved out of regular Pokemon world, and this, people were stabbing each other and killing each other, and it got brutal and gory very, very quick. Which I think is the only thing you could expect from a Pokemon RPG. If you're playing in Pokemon Land and you give people the ability to stab trainers or whatever, like that's gonna be what happens. Also, I know in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon World, there's not really, or it is left intentionally vague as to whether or not there are humans running around and doing stuff. But in this, I just decided, whatever, combining Pokemon World and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon World. So yeah, so they killed Mr. Mime with his own knife, and they robbed him for 1,200 Poké dollars, and they went to the mini mart and they bought some Pokeballs, and they bought, or no, they actually didn't buy any Pokeballs. They bought 2 potions. Okay. So at this point, while in the city, I just wanted to make sure that they went down some path here to get ready for this Giratina fight. So a couple of options that I presented here, and I didn't explain this as, hey guys, here's what you can do, right? I let them just walk around the city and do whatever they wanted, and then when they latched onto a path, in this case they picked the mansion because they saw the mansion. They're like, well, let's go there, and I knew, okay, so this is going to be the path that we kind of go down to have them solve this session. But I conceived of possibly getting a bunch of Voltorbs from the power plant and then just like duct taping them all together or something, or in some way getting a bunch of Voltorbs and convincing them to all self-destruct, maybe forcefully or something like that. Maybe catching them with Pokeballs is what I envisioned here. And then just have a bunch of Voltorbs all self-destruct at the same time against the Giratina. Could probably do something. Second one I was thinking was the Master Ball in the mansion of Marsuvius, the mayor, who's rich and just has expensive stuff like that. Or they could conceivably have gone into the sewers and got involved in the Team Rocket illegal black market trade, where they figured out there was some shipment of a bunch of bootleg rare candies being moved, and then, you know, they could all just level up to 100 and then beat this Giratina. Now, I wasn't exactly sure how any of them would go about doing any of these things. I figured maybe with the sewers, maybe they capture one of those Team Rocket, that Mr. Mime, and question him, and he tells them about this stuff. But they saw I believe the first thing they went for was the power plant, because they were just like, well, let's check out what's there. So they go there and they see an old man getting beat up by some Grimers, and this is who I eventually ended up making Old Man Jim. So they kill those Grimers and then save this old man, and he explains like, hey, here is where Giratina is, like how to get to him, the directions, and he also told them about the existence of the mansion. There was a moment where they were going to go deeper into the power plant, but they then decided to go to the mansion, which they did do. They go to the mansion. They sneak in. They get into his room. They find out that actually at this point, Luke had used one of his fate points to say like, hey, well, can there be other Squirtles here that are like the groundskeepers and like responsible for watering his garden? And I was like, sure, that's great. And then like that was a good use of a fate point, tying that to an aspect. Plus one good player point to Luke for that there. Which also, plus one good player point to everyone for showing up and having a good time, though. But yeah, Luke was a Squirtle, and he went in and he was hanging out, and he convinced them to do a whole Squirtle revolution against their master of this mansion and to kill him. So Torchic, Vince, and Snow Runt, Joey sneak into the mansion, and they rob this old dude who they find out has some debilitating cancerous disease and is hooked up to this machine and like just bedridden. They steal all his Dragonites, which he has a belt of 6 Dragonites, or Dragonairs. Dragonair, the orange one. And they also rummage through all his drawers and everything, and they find a Master Ball there. So they decide, like, all right, that seems like a pretty sick way to deal with Giratina, which I don't think they were actually aware of the Master Ball until this moment right here. So then they also steal a bunch of money from him, and then use that money to unlock a bike that he had. And they decided they were going to take this bike to get to Mount Turnback Cave. So they all hop on the bike, they take the Master Ball, and they are going down there. they run across a Firo getting pelted by some teenagers who at this point I just throw him in there as a like, hey, you can save this guy, and then just you can save this guy and he'll fly you there, which I don't know. I guess with this guy, I think I might have went a little. I don't know. This one might have been a little too obvious as a little bit of a railroad point. So of course the players have to fight back with this, and they slaughter all these teenagers and then kill the Firo. Because I started telling everyone they were getting XP when they were killing people. So they kill the Firo, and then they just have to hike a mile, or not a mile, a month to this mansion, and they all suffer some exhaustion on the way there as one of their consequences. But yeah, I don't blame them for killing the Firo. That's what I would have done just to stick it to the DM. But they eventually get to the mountain, and there is a puzzle here. There's a red door, a green door. No, there's a red door, a purple door, and a gray door, and then they have like a brown plate, a gray plate, and a blue plate, and these all correlate to different moves, and you have to use the plate that's super effective against the door to continue moving forward. But and again, I thought this puzzle was gonna be too simple. I thought it was gonna be too easy, and that everyone's gonna be rolling their eyes. But of course, when it comes to D&D, that is just never, ever, ever the case. No matter how simple you think you made the puzzle, so of course they have to pull some Indiana Jones shenanigans as they're sliding under the door as they pull the plate out from behind them so that they can bring it to the next door in front of them. Um, which again, at this point we were getting a little close to a little too late in the evening, so it's just like, all right, I can't spend like half an hour or an hour on this puzzle or anything. We just gotta keep things moving. So it's like, sure, yeah, you Indiana Jones through this puzzle. It's fine. It works. So they come across Giratina. Oh yeah, I guess I forgot on the route there. So they stole the 6 Dragonites and they kept releasing them one by one, which somehow this scene took the longest of anything that they had done, where they were just letting out Dragonites one by one and then talking to them and trying to discern whether or not they were loyal to Marsuvlius, and or if they would be willing to fight against Marsuvlius or whatever. And they kept some of them eventually ended up back in Pokeballs. Some of them they have ended up killing. Some of them escaped and ran away. There was an entire very long scene where they talked to and had a whole thing with all of these Dragonairs out of this guy's Pokemon belt. But yeah, so they got to Giratina. They throw a Master Ball at him. One of the Dragonairs that they released flies in and swoops in and tries to look out Sir the Pokeball as Giratina's going to get hit. Because it was also established before this that Marsuvlius and Giratina are good friends for reasons that were never explained, but ended up being relevant towards the end. So this, yeah, then Vince quick attacks the Master Ball before it gets thrown at this Dragonair, and then hops over him, and then Master Balls the Giratina, who then he does the whole scene where he shows that the world is going to fall into a nuclear wasteland apocalypse because humans are inherently evil and cruel and sadistic and pathetic and weak, and that they should just all hang out here and live in Pokemon land and rule over everyone. But instead, they go to a nearby volcano. They get a ride from Zatu. They psychically call out to him, fly over, throw the ball into the volcano, kill Giratina, then all get sent back to their real lives with as their player human person. And then they wake up and they see that they have Pokeballs Then they're sent a message by Zatu that they should kill the president of China in order to stop this nuclear apocalypse. And that was the end of the session. So overall, pretty happy we actually got to the end of it. We started like an hour late or something, so a lot of this had to get real crunched down. But I'm honestly quite happy with it. People seem to be having a good time. I don't think I could do an extended Fate campaign because I do think the whole loosey goosey fake rules situation would probably wear thin on people. And I think if you're doing a real proper campaign, you're gonna want that real more strict crunchy thing. But yeah, this was good session. I'd be very down to do another one shot. I might need more time in the future next time though, because I ended up writing this like whole thing and like learning this system and like making these characters in like 2 days, which a little bit on me. I definitely there was some procrastinating going on there, but I think if I had like 2 weeks for the next one, I think I could make like a pretty good session. But I'm very excited to give people a bunch of chances with one shots, and then I do want to go into a real good old classic proper campaign with everyone having learned a bunch of things that are possible with D&D from all these one shots, and maybe again convincing other people. I do think I'm very very happy that Shaft was here as a new player, because I think this was actually a pretty good showing as how fun RPGs can be. Because this one was just a good old giggly time for the whole 3 hours that it went on. I think people could be convinced to do that again. So I'm hoping to recruit more players that have never played D&D before, and I think I can try to maybe press gang some people into a real full campaign after a good old series of one shots. Goodbye. Oh wait, actually, I almost forgot the one thing that I forgot it both in this recap and in the actual video. So one of the main things that there was going to be a big reveal when Zatu. Okay, so yeah, so when they opened up the chamber, they immediately just said, "All right, I'm gonna run up, sprint, and master ball Giratina," which fair enough, that is what is expected. But and I just let that happen. But I had prepared a whole speech and debate, and then Zatu was gonna show up and then have the no, this is why you guys should do this thing, and then there was gonna be the reveal of the prophecy was based on the power of friendship, and that they were chosen as humans because they exhibited the greatest amount of friendship of anyone, of any human. I'm kicking myself that I forgot to include that when the whole final showdown went down, but it's so I don't know. I was maybe running out of gas a little bit at the end there, and I maybe got a little impatient towards the end, just trying to wrap things up. Honestly, I think in the future, if I were to do this again, I think I would spend more time on the ending as a whole and making sure that really really pops, right? Because even though for the first 2/3 of the session that I thought were like really strong and good, you leave with the lasting impression of however it ends, and the ending was a little rushed. I kind of just went through the motions getting it wrapped up by the end there. I think I wish I took my time just a bit more and added maybe like 10-15 minutes of tension in the whole Giratina final conflict, rather than just having it be a couple of rolls and the whole thing was over. I guess. All right, yeah. Another thing, just my formula for my one shots, or at least what I plan on doing moving forward as well. Which this one I really didn't have a ton of an idea as to what I was doing. I was just like, all I know is I need a beginning, a middle, and an end. Let's write a thing and then see how it goes. Which again, I think it was very very good. I'm happy with how it went. But I think in the future, my formula, the beginning, very 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 concrete with. How do we know everyone? How do we get everyone together? What is their goal? What are we all working to do? Why are they all working together? All of that stuff. Act 1, figure out that whole introduction, establish the world, establish the tone, do all of that, get the genre in there, the introduce people to the mechanics, all of that in that Act 1. Act 2, maybe have like very vague, very ambiguous, really let the players go wild with whatever they want to do with Act 2 is. Generally, which will be figuring out what they want their plan to be in order to solve the problem, right? They're acting and trying to figure this thing out. And then Act 3, I don't think you should detail the like set piece specifically, or I think you should pick like one aspect, I guess. Maybe be that either the set piece or the character, and very much so flesh that one aspect out and then figure out how to tie in their plan with that one aspect that you're figuring out for the ending. I guess that would be my advice there. Yeah, nope. All right, that's it for realsies this time. Right? Is it? Okay. Yep. All right. Goodbye.